Take the bull by the horn and take action that will drive the direction. Challenge the status quo. Women can make the change. We've had some very interesting and a very enlightening discussion. Now let's move on to another topic, women leaders as agents of change. Talking to us about this is Dr. Sania Nishtar, founding president of Heartfile, a health sector NGO think tank, which today is the most powerful health policy voice in Pakistan and is recognized as a model to replicate in other developing countries. She is also the founder of Pakistan's Health Policy Forum. Dr. Nishtar's scope of work has several global dimensions, as she is affiliated with many international bodies, such as the Paris-based International Union for Health Promotion, the Geneva-based Alliance for Health Policy and Systems Research, the Clinton Global Initiative, and the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council. She has formerly been on several international boards and has chaired many global campaigns and programs. Please welcome Dr. Sania Nishtar.
Mr. Birney, members of the organizing committee, distinguished panel members, those that are remaining in the audience, that is, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon. Allow me to begin by commending the organizers for this initiative and for spearheading a dialogue on this subject, which is of huge importance. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank you for providing me with this opportunity. It's a privilege indeed. And I'd also like to thank you for the gracious hospitality. I must comment and tell you that the facilitation provided to the speakers was excellent. I've been hearing with great interest the sessions that have just happened, especially the discussion around the role of women in the corporate sector in the formally employed environment. And of course, there are various ways of thrashing out this issue of women and their role in potential leadership. And you need to see it in different contexts. There is a context of women in leadership which has to do with the formally employed sector. And much of the discussion that we've had here this morning is about the role of women in organized industries and in corporate Pakistan, in the formally employed sector. And of course, there are lots of similarities between that and the non-profit sector, which is where I come from. And there is this whole discussion about role models and how we can use that as an inspiration and how to analyze opportunities and how to assess impediments. And much of what we've heard in the morning has been a discussion around those issues. There is, of course, another way of looking at the role of women and the issue of women leadership in general. And that has to do with the broader role of the state and the broader role of the government in institutionalizing leadership development, in cultivating leadership with equal opportunity for men and women, and of making sure that women have the right share of the pie in any effort that is mainstreamed to foster leadership development in general. And that's the broader context of leadership from the perspective of how I see it. And this context has to do with how the state and the nation and the government and the other institutional machineries look at women as agents of change, and how they, for instance, look at the role of women in the overarching macroeconomic development of the country. And that is a hugely important aspect of leadership development from the way that I see it. This aspect of leadership development, particularly with reference to women, has to do with the cross-cutting issues of access and rights and opportunities and empowerment, and in general about equity and equality in employment in the formally and in the non-formally employed sectors. And I was very touched this morning when the president of the bank, who's not here with us today, Mrs. Shagufta, talked about the Breslow's hierarchies of needs, and she made a very touching point. She said that most women are actually stuck at the second rung. They cannot get past the issues of security and access. So leadership is really high above the triad that demarcates the Breslow's hierarchy of needs. And I think part of the challenge that we have here today is to make sure that women get to that rung. That is a very long haul, and we cannot talk about that context without talking about the role of the state in leadership development, without talking about nation building and how governments look at women development in general and the issues of rights and access and opportunities and empowerment. So within that broader remit, I'd like to talk about 5 points. The first point has to do with how the state and the nation functions. Let us be reminded that women are 50% of the population. I beg your pardon, according to our statistics, 52% of the population. Let us not forget that women are human beings. Let us not forget that women are part of the population, and population outcomes are dependent on how nations function, how states execute their business. We're all aware of the fact that when governments and states make investments in education, where the social fabric is a lot strengthened, where investments are made in the social sector, where governance systems are better, where law and order is upheld, where institutions of the state function, where political systems and democracies are true in their truest sense, population outcomes are not just better, they're also better distributed. And men and women both benefit from that. And I think if we step back and look at where we stand today, very dispassionately, in a very non-partisan role, and if we get away from this polarized debate that we continue to see over and over again in the media about people bickering over the trivialities of what we see as manifestations of state malfunctioning, and if we look at things dispassionately, and if we look at numbers, things are alarming indeed. We have to ask ourselves, how does Pakistan rate 132, and here I need to refer to my notes, how does it rate 136, I beg your pardon, out of 177 on the Human Development Index?